My name is Anna Nichenko. Hello, and let's analyze it with our guest. It's John Herbst, the United States Ambassador to Ukraine from 2003 until 2006. Hello, and thank you that you joined today our program.
My pleasure.
International company Global Firepower gave annual ranks of the best armies in the world among 140 countries, and the most powerful one on the planet belongs to the USA. It currently has 1,400,000 active duty soldiers and about the same number in the active personnel reserve. The defense budget is over $689 billion per year. The United States also has the most trained troops and a powerful arsenal. For example, they use more than 8,000 tanks, over 1,300,000 nuclear warheads, and U.S. develops combat aircraft. Mr. Herbst, how do you assess U.S. Army power now, and can it resist Russian army if necessary?
The United States, as you correctly said, has the most powerful military in the world by far. We are a nuclear peer power with Russia, but in terms of conventional forces, we are far more powerful. As we're learning right now, the Russian military is not nearly as good as everybody thought. Ukraine's military, which is much smaller, delivered a crushing defeat to the Russian offensive around Kiev and around Chernihiv in Moscow's unprovoked new invasion of Ukraine. And Russian forces have been forced to regroup in the east of Ukraine.
And according to military strength ranking 2022 from Global Firepower, Russian army is on the second place. And I'll say that's one of the most experienced in the world, and its number is more than a million servicemen. The annual budget is more than $64 billion, and Russia has the largest number of nuclear warheads in the world. These are more than 10,000 armored vehicles and 3,000 tanks. By the way, it used to be the first army in the world by the amount of tanks, but we know that Russia lost at least 900 tanks in the war against Ukraine. How can you now assess Russian army power now?
3 months ago, I said it was unclear who had the second strongest conventional military in the world, Russia or China. Seeing how poorly the Russian military has performed in Ukraine over the past 2 months, I think it's safe to say that China has the second strongest conventional armed forces in the world. The Russian military, again, has performed dreadfully. We don't know how they'll perform in their latest offensive in eastern Ukraine. They are still unable to take Mariupol, even though Putin claimed yesterday that they have taken it. So we're now waiting and watching to see how Moscow is going to perform in Ukraine's east. I'm not going to tell you they'll perform badly in the future, but they've certainly done very badly over the past 2 months.
Mm-hmm. Speaking, by the way, about China, China shows relative maybe neutrality on the issue of Russian invasion of Ukraine. But the confrontation between the two super countries, I mean USA and China, was predicted until at least 2030. And now Chinese army is on the first place in the world in terms of army size, more than 2.3 million person. Budget is approximately 129 billion a year and about 240 nuclear missiles launchers. In some confrontation between USA and China, does Peking look for Russian support, and does Moscow look for Chinese support today?
Well, I would say that China has been quietly, or not so quietly, in Moscow's corner as Putin launched this new invasion of Ukraine. They like to claim they believe in territorial integrity of nations, even though they're quietly back or indirectly backing Moscow as Moscow tries to change Ukraine's territorial integrity, to seize Ukrainian territory. But I think China has been also surprised and disappointed by the very poor performance of Russia's military. They've also been surprised and disappointed by the unity of the West, the strength of the West in responding to Putin's latest aggression. And I believe this gives China pause about using its own military, for example, to seize Taiwan. That's another reason why it's very important for the United States and our NATO allies to make sure that Putin loses in Ukraine.
And how do you think if Putin attacks any European country, will it be ready? Will their armies be ready to resist?
I think Putin right now has his hands full in Ukraine. But I think if Putin were to win this war against Ukraine, that our NATO allies, especially in the Baltic states, would have to worry about some possible Russian military action against them. That's why it's very, very important, again, to defeat Putin in Ukraine.
And by the way, total government aid to Ukraine in the first months of Russian invasion of our country is much more from the USA than from European countries. Now Ukraine has risen in the ranking of the most powerful armies in the world according to this global firepower. This year Ukraine is on the 22nd place. And what can you say about Ukrainian army now, about Ukrainian resistance to this Russian aggression?
Look, Ukraine's army and military overall is far inferior in terms of numbers, people, soldiers, and of course, military weapons. But they have a creative military leadership, and they have extraordinary morale. Ukrainian soldiers realize that Putin wants to completely put Ukraine under his boot. And Russian war atrocities against civilians are now well documented, and his intention is to de-Ukrainianize Ukraine, which is why some people are talking about Russian genocide in Ukraine. So they understand they have no option but either to submit to Russian dictatorship or to win on the battlefield. And this has made them very, very brave and very creative in fighting a much stronger force. And so far they're winning. Now they require great American and Western support in terms of weapons. And we've provided a good bit of weapons, but not nearly enough, and not the more advanced weapons Ukraine needs. But I think there's a good chance that Ukraine will be able to defeat Moscow in this war.
And I also have one more question. How do you think, what kind of help Ukraine needs now most of all? Military, I don't know, sanctions on a diplomatic arena, what kind of?
Look, the Biden administration has laid out the right general course of action. Big sanctions on Russia and also lots of arms to Ukraine. But it has to do more, especially on the arms part. They've made decisions this week and last week to send $1.6 billion of aid, $1.6 billion of aid, $1.6 billion of aid, $1.6 billion of aid, military aid. That includes long-range artillery. That's very important. Also, armored personnel carriers. That's very important. But they're still not sending multiple rocket launchers. They're still not sending MiG fighters via our European allies. They're still not sending Sukhoi bombers via our European allies. They need to change their past decisions and get those aircraft to Ukraine as well. If we do that, again, there's a good chance Ukraine will blunt this Kremlin offensive in eastern Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Herbst, for these words, and thank you that today you joined our program. I'll remind our viewers it was John Herbst, United States Ambassador to Ukraine from September 2003 and until May 2006. So we discussed the power of armies in the world and their possibilities to resist Putin and our Ukrainian possibilities to resist Russian aggression of Ukraine. It was you in English, Anna Nichenko. See you.